In the distant reaches of the galaxy, far beyond the familiar borders of Earth's space, there was a world that few had ever visited. It lay hidden among the stars, uncharted and forgotten. For centuries, this world had remained silent, its surface untouched by the hands of explorers or conquerors. However, that was about to change. Captain Alex Rains stood at the helm of the Aurora, the flagship of Earth's exploration fleet. His crew of dedicated explorers had spent months traveling through the unknown, mapping stars and charting planets that no human had ever seen. But this mission was different. This mission held something extraordinary. The message had come through a strange signal, one that was too specific to ignore. The coordinates led them to a planet far beyond any known star system, a place that even the most advanced galactic sensors couldn't detect properly. The message was encoded, but after careful analysis, the crew had deciphered it. It spoke of a vault, a hidden relic, and a lost civilization, the Eldari. The Eldari were a powerful species, Rain had read aloud to his crew as the Aurora neared the planet. Long extinct, their empire was one of the greatest to have ever existed. But they disappeared without a trace, leaving behind nothing but ruins and forgotten technology. His first officer, Lieutenant Kara Sorensen, looked at the holographic display showing the planet below. "You think this vault is from them?" she asked, her voice full of curiosity. "I do," Rain replied. "And I think it holds something important. We need to find it before anyone else does." The Aurora descended through the planet's thick atmosphere, the engines humming softly as they glided toward the surface. The world below was a barren wasteland, covered in desert-like terrain and jagged mountains. At first glance, it seemed lifeless, a place that had long forgotten any form of civilization. But as the ship touched down in a vast valley, something caught Rain's attention. A faint shimmer in the air, a strange, almost imperceptible glow. It was unlike anything he had seen before. "Captain, look at this," said Ensign Harper, the ship's communications officer, pointing to a strange structure on the horizon. It was large, towering high above the barren landscape, and it pulsed with a soft, steady light. "That's it," Rain said, his voice filled with awe. "The vault. Let's suit up and investigate." The crew gathered their gear and prepared to leave the ship. The landscape outside was quiet, eerily silent, as if the planet itself had been waiting for this moment. As they walked toward the structure, the air seemed to grow colder, the ground crunching under their boots. When they reached the entrance to the vault, they found it to be an enormous circular door, covered in intricate symbols and strange markings that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. It was unlike any technology Rain had seen before. It wasn't just advanced. It was ancient, older than anything humanity had encountered. "Looks like we're going to have to figure out how to open it," Kara said, studying the symbols. She ran her fingers over the markings, trying to make sense of them. "I can help with that," said Dr. Lena Darrow, the ship's xenologist, as she stepped forward. "I've studied ancient languages and symbols from all over the galaxy. This is definitely Eldari tech." With her guidance, they managed to unlock the door. As it slowly creaked open, the crew stepped inside, their boots echoing in the vast, empty chamber. The interior of the vault was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were smooth and metallic, covered in an energy field that pulsed with a faint blue glow. It was as if the vault was alive, breathing, waiting for something to happen. "Stay sharp," Rain instructed. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." The crew moved cautiously through the chamber, their lights scanning the surroundings. The further they went, the more the air seemed to hum with energy. It wasn't just the vault that was alive, it was the very atmosphere, as if the structure itself was reacting to their presence. At the heart of the chamber, they found a large metallic object. It was shaped like a ship, but it was unlike any ship the humans had ever seen. It was sleek with curved edges and a surface that seemed to absorb the light around it. The hull shimmered as if it were made from some kind of living metal. There was a faint, soft pulse coming from within it as though it were breathing. "This is it," Rain said, his voice filled with wonder. "This is what they were hiding." The crew gathered around the relic, their eyes wide with awe. Dr. Darrow approached it carefully, her fingers lightly brushing the surface of the hull. "Incredible," she whispered. "This technology, it's beyond anything we could ever hope to replicate. It's as if the ship is a part of the vault itself." As she spoke, something unexpected happened. The relic suddenly began to glow. At first it was a soft light, just a flicker, but within moments it intensified. The entire chamber seemed to hum with power. The crew stepped back in shock as the air around them crackled with energy. "What's happening?" Kara asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "I don't know," Rain said, his eyes fixed on the glowing vessel. "It's like it's reacting to something. To us." Dr. Darrow took a cautious step forward, her hand trembling as she reached toward the glowing surface. "It's almost as if it's alive." Without warning, a strange pulse of energy shot from the relic, enveloping Dr. Darrow's hand. She gasped, pulling it back in shock, but the energy didn't fade. Instead, it surged, flowing into her, and for a moment the vault was silent. The glow from the relic casting strange shadows on the walls. "Dr. Darrow?" Rain called, his voice full of concern. The woman stood frozen, her eyes wide as if she were in a trance. The crew watched in silence, unsure of what to do. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the energy stopped. Dr. Darrow blinked, her hand falling to her side, as the glow from the relic slowly faded. That was strange," she said, her voice shaky. "I felt something, a connection, like it was trying to communicate with me." "Communicate?" Rain asked, taking a step closer. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," Dr. Darrow replied, her voice still distant. "It was as if the ship, the relic, recognized me. Or maybe it recognized something about me." Rain stared at the glowing vessel, his mind racing. What was happening? What had they uncovered? And then, as if answering his unspoken thoughts, the relic pulsed again, this time more intensely, sending a shockwave through the chamber. The walls vibrated, and for a moment it felt as if the entire vault was about to collapse. "We need to get out of here," Rain said, his voice urgent. "Now." But as they turned to leave, something unexpected happened. A low hum filled the air, and suddenly the doors to the vault slammed shut, trapping them inside. "What the hell?" Kara shouted, pounding on the door. "We're locked in." The relic pulsed again, stronger this time, and the entire chamber began to shake. The energy field surrounding them flickered and flared, and for the first time Rain felt an overwhelming sense of danger. "Something's wrong," he said, his voice grim. "This isn't just a vault. It's a trap." The crew moved quickly, trying to find a way to escape, but the chamber was designed to prevent intrusion, and now it was working against them. As the glow from the relic grew brighter, Rain knew one thing for certain. The human race had just uncovered something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The low hum of the vault's energy field vibrated through the air, sending a chill down Captain Rain's spine. The glowing relic at the center of the room pulsed with an unnatural intensity, casting eerie shadows across the walls. His crew stood frozen, watching in disbelief as the chamber trembled. The air felt thick, charged with an electric tension that made it hard to breathe. "What's happening?" Lieutenant Kara Sorensen asked, her voice tense with uncertainty. She glanced nervously at Dr. Lena Darrow, who had been the first to touch the relic and who now seemed lost in a daze, her eyes wide, her breath shallow. Rain didn't respond immediately. His mind raced as he tried to process everything that had just happened. The relic had come to life when Dr. Darrow touched it, and now it was as if it had woken from a long slumber. But why, and what did it want? "We need to stay calm," Rain finally said, his voice steady despite the unease he felt. He stepped forward, placing himself between the crew and the glowing vessel. "Dr. Darrow, are you all right?" Dr. Darrow blinked rapidly as if coming out of a trance. She looked around, confusion in her eyes. I'm fine. But I felt something powerful. The relic. It was calling to me. Calling to you? Kara repeated, her voice filled with disbelief. "I don't know how to explain it," Dr. Darrow said, her voice trembling. "It's like it was speaking directly to my mind. I felt connected, as if it knew who I was, knew everything about me." Rain frowned. He had never believed in the idea of telepathic communication, especially not with an ancient alien artifact. Yet the way the relic reacted to Dr. Darrow's touch made him question everything he thought he knew about technology. "We need to get out of here," Rain said, urgency creeping into his voice. The vault was alive with energy, and the feeling of danger was growing with every passing second. He turned to Kara. "Find a way to open those doors. We don't know what this thing is capable of." Kara nodded and immediately approached the door, pulling out a small device to try and hack into the control system. The rest of the crew gathered nervously around the room, their eyes constantly flicking back to the relic which seemed to be watching them, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. Just as Kara began to work, a sudden flash of light erupted from the relic. It was blinding, a sharp burst of energy that made everyone stumble backward, shielding their eyes. What the hell was that? Kara shouted, her voice strained. She looked at Rain in alarm. I can't open the door. It's like it's locked us in here. Rain's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected the vault to trap them. The walls of the chamber were smooth and featureless, offering no clear way out. And now it seemed as though the vault itself had become a prison. What do we do now? Ensign Harper asked, his voice shaking with fear. Rain stood silently for a moment, his mind racing. He had no answers. He had no idea how to fight back against something this powerful, this ancient. But there was one thing he knew. This relic, whatever it was, wasn't going to let them leave easily. We need to understand it, Rain said finally, a new determination in his voice. The relic wants something from us. We just need to figure out what it is. Maybe Dr. Darrow can help, Kara suggested, her voice hopeful. Rain nodded. Dr. Darrow, what do you think? Any ideas? Dr. Darrow looked up at the glowing relic, her expression distant. I don't know, she admitted, her voice shaky. But there's something familiar about it. The way it reacts. It feels like it's trying to communicate with me or perhaps with all of us. Rain's thoughts raced. Could it be that the relic had a deeper purpose? Was it waiting for something? Like an activation code or a command? Suddenly a low humming sound filled the chamber. It was coming from the relic itself. The glow intensified, bathing the entire room in a soft blue light. The energy in the air became thick, almost tangible. Look, Kara shouted, pointing to the walls. The strange symbols that had once been hidden beneath layers of dust and age now glowed in perfect alignment with the pulse of the relic. The markings on the walls, once indecipherable, were now slowly shifting, rearranging themselves as if alive. It's changing, Dr. Darrow whispered, awe in her voice. It's trying to tell us something. Rain stepped forward cautiously, drawn by the rhythmic pulse of the relic. The walls around them seemed to hum, vibrating with the energy that had come to life. Each step he took, the air seemed to grow heavier, thicker. The relic's glow became almost overwhelming, its light spilling across the walls and casting long, strange shadows on the floor. Stay back, Rain said, holding up his hand. He wasn't sure why, but something about the relic's pulse felt dangerous. The feeling of being watched, of being tested, was growing stronger with every passing moment. He turned back to Dr. Darrow. Is there anything you can do? Anything you can sense from it? Dr. Darrow stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the glowing object. I think it wants us to understand it. It's offering something, but I don't know what. Maybe I can try to make a connection again, but I need to focus. Rain nodded. Do what you can. We're running out of time. With a deep breath, Dr. Darrow approached the relic once more. This time she didn't hesitate. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly as it made contact with the glowing surface. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, the relic's glow intensified again, and this time Dr. Darrow didn't pull away. Instead, she closed her eyes and focused all of her energy on the artifact. The rest of the crew watched in silence, unsure of what to do next. Minutes passed. The air grew colder, and the silence in the chamber was almost unbearable. Rain paced, his eyes constantly shifting between Dr. Darrow and the shifting symbols on the walls. Then, without warning, Dr. Darrow's eyes snapped open. She gasped, her breath catching in her throat. She began, but her voice was weak, like she was struggling to find the words. I felt it again. The relic. It's showing me things, images, memories. Memories? Kara asked, stepping forward. Dr. Darrow nodded slowly. Yes, it's showing me the history of the Eldari. Their rise, their fall, and the power they wielded. This relic, it was the key to their civilization. And now, it wants to be used again. Rain felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Used again? What do you mean? Dr. Darrow's eyes were distant, as if she were seeing something beyond the vault. The relic is waiting for someone. It's waiting for a chosen one, someone who can unlock its full potential. Rain's heart pounded in his chest. Could it be? Was this relic now recognizing humanity as worthy? Or was it manipulating them, playing them like pawns in some ancient game? Before he could voice his thoughts, the relic's pulse began to increase faster, stronger. The energy field around them crackled with power, and the walls seemed to vibrate with a growing intensity. This is it, Dr. Darrow whispered. It's ready, but we're not. None of us are ready for what it will do. The relic's pulse was no longer just a flicker. It was an overwhelming thrum that filled the room with a sound like the beating of 1,000 hearts. Captain Rain felt it in his chest, the power of the artifact echoing through his body. The chamber was alive with energy now, and the walls themselves seemed to shift, the glowing symbols moving like a puzzle that was coming together piece by piece. "We need to act quickly," Rain said, his voice firm. The air around them felt charged, and the crew was on edge. He turned to Dr. Darrow, who stood near the relic, her expression distant as if she were still connected to it in some way. "Dr. Darrow, what's happening? What do we need to do?" Dr. Darrow blinked as though waking from a trance. She looked around, her eyes struggling to focus. "It's showing me things," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Things that happened long ago, things about the Eldari." "Tell us," Rain urged, stepping closer. "What are you seeing? What does it mean?" Dr. Darrow's hands trembled as she stepped away from the relic, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I'm seeing their rise, their power, and their eventual fall. The Eldari were once the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their empire stretched across worlds, worlds that no longer exist." She paused, her breath shallow. "The relic is part of their downfall. It was their greatest creation and their greatest mistake. They used it to control energy, to power their ships, their cities, and even their minds. But the more they used it, the more they became dependent on it. They lost their way. The relic became something they couldn't control." Rain frowned, his mind racing. "So this relic, it's dangerous?" Dr. Darrow nodded. "Yes, the Eldari couldn't stop themselves from using it. It corrupted them. And when they realized their mistake, it was too late. The relic is a weapon, a tool of unimaginable power, but it comes with a price. Then why would it choose now to awaken?" Lieutenant Kara Sorensen asked, her voice filled with confusion. "Why now and why us?" "I don't know," Dr. Darrow admitted. "But I think the relic is searching for a new master. A new wielder, someone worthy of its power." Rain's stomach turned. The idea of wielding such power was dangerous. The Eldari had paid the ultimate price for their greed, and now this relic was asking humanity to make the same choice. He wasn't sure if they were worthy, but if they didn't act, they might never leave this vault alive. "Do you think it's calling to us?" Kara asked, still staring at the relic. "Is it choosing us?" "I don't know," Dr. Darrow repeated, her voice full of doubt. "But I do know this, it's not just waiting for someone. It's testing us. And if we fail, we might never get out of here." Rain's mind whirled as the relic's pulse grew stronger. The air around them felt thick, heavy with potential. It was as if every part of the vault was alive now, watching, waiting for them to make their next move. He could feel it too, the pull, the beckoning. The relic wanted something from them, but what? "I don't trust this," Rain said. His voice was low, filled with doubt. "This thing, this relic, it's too powerful. If the Eldari couldn't control it, how can we?" "I agree," Kara said, stepping back. "But we're trapped in here. We don't have a choice. We need to figure out how to get out." Dr. Darrow looked up, her eyes suddenly alert. "Wait, there's more. I see something. Something the Eldari left behind. A warning." Rain and the crew moved closer, their eyes focused on her. Dr. Darrow closed her eyes again, and the glow from the relic seemed to intensify. She spoke slowly, her voice trembling with what she was seeing. The Eldari built the relic to be their greatest weapon, but they never truly understood its power. They thought they could control it, but in the end it controlled them. And as their empire crumbled, they sealed the relic away, hoping it would be forgotten. They knew that whoever found it next would have to face the same choice they did, whether to use its power or to destroy it. Dr. Darrow opened her eyes. "The relic is a test, a challenge. It's waiting to see if we are worthy, if we can avoid the same mistakes the Eldari made. So if we fail this test," Kara said, her voice trailing off, "we die," Rain finished, "and the relic's power will fall into the hands of someone else, someone who might not be as cautious as we are." There was a heavy silence as the crew took in Dr. Darrow's words. The danger was clearer now, but so was the temptation. Power. The kind of power that could change the course of the galaxy. But at what cost? Rain turned away from the relic, his mind racing. "We can't let it fall into the wrong hands," he said, his voice firm. "But we can't use it ourselves either. We have to find a way to neutralize it, to make sure no one else can ever use it." "But how?" Kara asked, her brow furrowed in frustration. "We don't know how it works. We barely even know what it does. Rain walked around the chamber, his eyes scanning the walls. The symbols were still shifting, still glowing. The energy in the room felt like it was building to something big. We need to understand it, Rain said. We need to know how it works before we can make any decisions. If we can learn from the Eldari's mistakes, maybe we can stop this before it gets out of control. Dr. Darrow nodded slowly. You're right. But we need to be careful. The relic is dangerous. If it senses we're trying to stop it, it could react in ways we can't predict. Rain's eyes lingered on the relic for a moment longer before he turned back to the crew. Then we move carefully. We analyze every piece of data we can find. If we can learn more about the Eldari, their history, their failures, maybe we can find a way to stop this before it destroys us. The team agreed, and they began working in silence, carefully studying the relic and the symbols around them. They searched the walls for any clues, anything that could give them insight into how the Eldari had created this weapon, and how they had sealed it away. The pressure was mounting. Every second felt like a test, a choice between saving themselves and saving the galaxy. As the hours passed, Rain could feel the weight of the decision growing heavier. The relic was waiting for them to make their move. The more they studied it, the more they realized how little they truly understood. This wasn't just a machine, it was a key to unlocking unimaginable power. And with that power came an unimaginable risk. The glow from the relic flickered one more time, growing dimmer, as if it were losing patience. Rain could feel it deep in his gut. The relic was watching them, and it was ready to see if they would make the wrong choice. Would they succumb to its pull like the Eldari had done, or would they find a way to stop it before it was too late? He couldn't be sure. But one thing was certain. The future of humanity was now tied to the relic, and the choices they made in this chamber would determine the fate of the galaxy. The tension in the vault had reached a breaking point. The relic, its pulse growing faster and brighter, seemed to be alive, feeding off the energy in the room. Captain Rain could feel the pressure building with every passing moment. The relic was waiting for them to make a decision, and the longer they hesitated, the more dangerous the situation became. Rain turned to his crew, his voice steady despite the rising anxiety in his chest. We've studied the relic, but we don't have much time left. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands. We need to destroy it, or at least disable it, before anyone else can use it. But how do we destroy something this powerful? Lieutenant Kara Sorensen asked, her voice full of uncertainty. She had been with Rain on countless missions, but this was unlike anything they had faced before. The power of the relic seemed beyond comprehension. We don't have a clear answer yet, Rain replied, his eyes scanning the chamber. But we'll figure it out. We have no choice. Before they could make another move, a loud crashing noise echoed through the chamber. The walls shuddered, and the energy in the room flickered as the vault doors suddenly slid open with a hiss. The crew spun around, their hands instinctively reaching for their weapons. They hadn't expected anyone else to be here. We're not alone, Rain muttered under his breath. His mind raced, trying to think of what to do next. The sound of heavy footsteps grew louder as figures emerged from the shadows of the open doors. A group of heavily armed soldiers, clad in dark uniforms and bearing the insignia of the Scythor Dominion, stepped into the chamber. The Scythor Dominion was one of the most ruthless factions in the galaxy, known for its desire to control anything of value. They were merciless, and their soldiers had a reputation for being deadly. Rain's heart sank. The Dominion had been searching for the relic for years. They had no doubt followed the trail left by the signal and had found their way to the vault. Now they were standing between humanity and the relic's power. This is it, Rain said, his voice calm but with a hint of urgency. We have to fight our way out of here. Stay close and follow my lead. The crew immediately sprang into action. Kara moved quickly to take cover behind a large pillar near the entrance, while Dr. Darrow, though hesitant, grabbed a nearby weapon and joined her. Rain and Ensign Harper took their positions, ready to face the incoming threat. The leader of the Scythor Dominion soldiers, a tall, imposing figure with a scar across his face, stepped forward. His voice was cold, filled with authority. Step away from the relic, Captain Rain. This does not belong to you. Rain's hand tightened on his blaster, but he kept his voice steady. You don't understand what you're dealing with. This relic is dangerous. It can destroy entire civilizations, the Scythor officer sneered. That's exactly why it belongs to us. We will use it to conquer the galaxy. You humans have no idea what you found. I'm not giving it to you, Rain replied firmly. We won't let you use it for your own purposes. Without another word, the Scythor soldiers raised their weapons and a fierce firefight broke out. Blaster fire streaked through the air, lighting up the darkened chamber. Rain and his crew fought back with everything they had, but the Scythor soldiers were well trained, and the Relic's energy field made it difficult to move through the room without being caught in the crossfire. Kara ducked behind the pillar, peeking around it to take a shot at one of the Scythor soldiers. She hit her target, but another soldier immediately took his place, firing back. Ensign Harper moved quickly, using his agility to flank the enemy, catching them off guard and taking out 2 of them before they could react. Rain moved toward the Relic, his mind racing. They needed to act fast. The Scythor Dominion wasn't going to give up easily, and if they didn't figure out how to stop the Relic's power, it would fall into the wrong hands. He looked at Dr. Darrow, who was still hesitant, her face pale as she crouched behind cover. Dr. Darrow, we need your help. Rain called to her over the sound of gunfire. You're the only one who can understand the Relic. Can you find a way to shut it down? Dr. Darrow hesitated for a moment, clearly torn between helping and staying out of the danger. But when another round of blaster fire hit the wall near her, she jumped into action. She sprinted toward the Relic, her eyes locked onto the shifting symbols on the walls. The Relic was glowing brighter now, its power rising to dangerous levels. I think I can do something, Dr. Darrow shouted, her voice full of determination. She approached the Relic cautiously, her fingers trembling as she touched the surface. At that moment, the Scythor soldiers pressed forward, their weapons aimed at the crew. Stop her! One of them yelled. The leader, still standing at the back, gave a signal to advance. Rain raised his blaster and fired at the advancing soldiers, hitting one of them in the chest. But the leader of the Scythor Dominion was quick, and he ducked behind cover, out of range. Dr. Darrow's fingers were now moving swiftly over the surface of the Relic, following the glowing symbols that had started to shift in patterns she recognized from her earlier visions. It's trying to communicate with me again, she said, her voice strained. It's giving me a sequence, a code. I think I can lock it down. Do it, Dr. Darrow, Rain shouted, glancing back at the soldiers. The Dominion was closing in, and the time to act was running out. With a final motion, Dr. Darrow pressed her hand against the glowing surface. The Relic's pulse suddenly stopped, and a loud, low hum filled the room. The energy in the vault flickered and then began to die down, slowly at first, but then faster, as if the Relic was being powered off. For a brief moment, the vault was silent. The soldiers paused, uncertain of what was happening. The crew held their breath, watching Dr. Darrow. Had she done it? Then, just as quickly as the power had dimmed, it flared back to life, brighter than ever before. The Relic's energy surged with a force that sent a shockwave through the chamber. Dr. Darrow stumbled back, her face filled with fear. It's not shutting down, she gasped, struggling to regain her footing. Rain's eyes narrowed. We have to fight. We can't let them take it. With the Relic's power now fully awake, the battle intensified. The Scythor soldiers, realizing that their window of opportunity had closed, launched a full assault. The room erupted with blaster fire once again, and the crew was forced to retreat. Fall back, Rain shouted. Get to the ship. The crew began to move quickly, their backs to the Relic as they fought their way toward the vault's entrance. But the Scythor soldiers were relentless and the battle seemed endless. Rain's heart raced as he fired back, trying to buy enough time for his crew to make it out. Dr. Darrow stumbled again, this time falling to the ground. Kara rushed to her side, pulling her up and pushing her toward the exit. The Relic's glow was blinding now, a beacon of power that threatened to consume everything in its path. Just as they reached the exit, the leader of the Scythor soldiers stepped forward, blocking their way. He raised his blaster and aimed directly at Rain. This ends now, the Scythor officer said, his voice cold. Rain met his gaze, his hand hovering near his own weapon. It was now or never. He didn't know how much longer he could hold on. But one thing was certain. The Relic would not fall into their hands. Not without a fight. The sound of blaster fire echoed through the vault's corridors, mingling with the crackling hum of the Relic's energy. Captain Rain's pulse raced as he and his crew fought their way toward the exit, the Scythor Dominion soldiers closing in. His mind was focused, but his body ached from the battle. They were running out of time. Move, move. Rain shouted to his crew, urging them forward. He could feel the heat from the relic's glowing energy field, radiating through the air almost like a tangible force. The vault had become a battlefield, and they were caught in the middle. Dr. Darrow was struggling to keep up, her body shaking with exhaustion. Kara had her arm around Dr. Darrow's shoulders, guiding her through the chaos. Ensign Harper was a few paces ahead, his blaster held high as he covered their retreat. "We're almost there," Kara shouted, seeing the open doorway leading to the shuttle bay. The crew had been so close to escaping, but now they had to get through the final stretch. Behind them, the Scythor soldiers were closing in, their footsteps pounding against the metal floor. The leader of the Dominion, a hulking figure with a scar across his face, was just steps away. "We need to make it to the ship," Rain said, his eyes scanning the tunnel ahead. The entrance to the shuttle bay was just up ahead, but the soldiers were relentless. Every moment felt like an eternity. "Harper, cover us!" Ensign Harper immediately turned and fired, hitting one of the advancing soldiers square in the chest. The soldier fell back, but there were more where that came from. The vault's narrow corridors left little room for escape, and the soldiers were closing in fast. "We're almost there," Kara repeated, but there was a panic in her voice now. She was starting to slow down, and Dr. Darrow was barely able to keep up. The relic's power was overwhelming, and it was draining their energy with every passing moment. Rain pushed forward, his heart pounding. He couldn't let them fall now, not after everything they had been through, not after all they had discovered. Humanity's future depended on the choices they made in the next few moments. As they reached the shuttle bay, the doors slid open with a hiss, revealing their ship, the Aurora, waiting for them. But before they could board, a blast of energy hit the ground just in front of them. The Scythor leader had caught up. Rain turned, aiming his blaster at the officer, but the man raised his own weapon, aiming straight at Dr. Darrow. His voice was cold, filled with authority. "You've made your choice, Captain. Hand over the relic now." Rain's hand trembled as he held his weapon steady. The situation was dire. The leader was powerful, ruthless. But Rain knew what had to be done. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about protecting humanity from the temptation of the relic's power. "You won't win," Rain said, his voice firm. "The relic doesn't belong to anyone. Not you, not me. And definitely not to the Scythor Dominion." The leader sneered. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, human. The relic's power is far beyond your understanding. Hand it over and we will spare your lives. Refuse and there will be consequences." Rain hesitated, his heart racing. He could feel the pressure building. The relic was still pulsing with raw energy behind him, its power growing stronger by the second. He knew he couldn't let the Scythor Dominion get their hands on it, not after everything the Eldari had sacrificed. He turned to Dr. Darrow, who was standing beside him, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Dr. Darrow, can you shut it down? Can you stop it from transferring to them?" Dr. Darrow's eyes widened with fear. I don't know if I can. The relic is beyond anything I've ever seen. It's not just technology, it's alive. It wants something. I think it's looking for a master." A wielder, Rain's mind raced. The relic wanted a master. It wanted someone to wield its power. But was that what humanity needed? Could they control it? Or would they become just like the Eldari, lost in its allure, unable to stop themselves? Before he could speak again, the Scythor officer stepped forward, his weapon raised. "Last chance, Captain. Hand it over." Rain's grip tightened on his blaster. This was it. The moment of truth. In a swift motion, he made a decision. He dropped the weapon to the ground and walked toward the relic. "Captain, what are you doing?" Kara cried out in disbelief. "Trust me," Rain said, his voice low. "I won't let it fall into their hands. But I can't let it fall into ours either." With a deep breath, Rain reached out and placed his hand on the glowing surface of the relic. The moment his fingers touched the metal, the room seemed to pulse with energy. The power surged through his body, filling him with a strange warmth. He felt the relic's thoughts, its desires. It was aware of him. It recognized him as its potential master. But Rain fought it. He resisted the pull. He couldn't let it control him. He had to be strong. The Scythor officer stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. "You fool! You have no idea what you're doing!" But Rain wasn't listening. He closed his eyes, focusing all his willpower on the relic, pushing back against its tempting power. He could feel it fighting him, trying to invade his mind, but he held firm. The energy inside the chamber surged, a violent storm of power that threatened to tear everything apart. "Dr. Darrow," Rain shouted. "Now shut it down. You have to stop it." Dr. Darrow, still standing by the shuttle, nodded in understanding. She reached into her bag, pulling out a small device that looked like a key. She ran toward Rain, her face full of determination. As she approached, the relic's pulse grew louder, more insistent, almost like a heartbeat. With trembling hands, Dr. Darrow inserted the device into a slot on the relic's surface. There was a loud, crackling sound, and for a moment everything went still. The glow from the relic flickered, then faded. The hum of energy quieted. Rain could feel the pressure lifting, the weight of the relic's influence fading. For a moment it felt like the entire vault was holding its breath, and then the relic's glow dimmed entirely. The pulsing stopped. Rain let out a sigh of relief, his body shaking from the strain of resisting the relic's power. The storm inside his mind calmed and the oppressive weight lifted, but the battle wasn't over. The Scyther officer's fury was palpable as he raised his blaster, aiming directly at Rain. "This isn't over," the officer growled. "We'll take what's ours one way or another." Before he could fire, the Aurora's engines roared to life. The crew, ready to escape, opened fire on the Scythor soldiers. The energy field around them weakened, and Rain, with the help of his team, rushed toward the ship. They had won the battle, but the war was still far from over. As they boarded the ship, the crew knew one thing for sure. The galaxy had just witnessed a turning point. The relic, though subdued, would always be a reminder of the power humanity had at its fingertips. Whether they would rise above it or fall like the Eldari was still unknown. Rain looked out the viewport as the Aurora lifted off, leaving the forgotten vault behind. He had made the right choice. But the future would always be uncertain. One thing was clear, though. Humanity had taken its first step into the unknown, and whatever came next, they would face it together.